Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Well, we're on location with today's episode at the top of the Space Needle, to be specific, where I sit down with the CEO of the Space Needle, Ron Sevart. First, a little bit of history and some fun facts about the Needle, for those that may not be familiar. There's so much great history surrounding this iconic Seattle structure. Of course, built for the World's Fair in 1962, it was completed in just over a year. 467 cement trucks poured the foundation in just a day. And at the time, it was the largest continuous foundation pour in the United States. The foundation itself weighs as much as the Space Needle, and the center of gravity for the structure is just 5 feet above ground. It opened on April 21st, 1962. During the World's Fair, 2.65 million people came through and came to the top of the Space Needle, including a number of world celebrities: Elvis Presley, Prince Philip of Great Britain, Bobby Kennedy, Walter Cronkite, John Wayne, Bob Hope, and many others. 2.65 million people just during the World's Fair. A pretty incredible number. Ron Sevart has led the Space Needle and Chihuly Garden and Glass since he came to Seattle in 2008. Before that, he had a career in theme parks across the country before landing in Seattle. And Ron and I discussed his efforts to steer the Needle through the Great Recession that descended on Seattle and the rest of the country in 2008 when he took the helm, as well as the global pandemic. The $100 million renovation of the Needle that was completed in 2018, how the revolving glass floor that exists today came to be, the success of Chihuly Garden and Glass since it opened, his approach to leadership and creating a great aligned culture, the guest experience, some of his favorite memories and moments at the Needle, and the very complicated, complex, and expensive elevator renovation project that Ron and his team will soon embark on. Hope you enjoy my conversation with the CEO of the Space Needle, Ron Sevart. Well, morning, Ron.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us in your office.
It's
You got a good view.
yeah, quite the nice office up here. During COVID,
This is where you came to work, right?
many days, I was one of the very few people in our office, especially after, we shut down March 13th. I think that's the date that most of the country kind of shut down of 2020. And many days I would come up here and this was my office.
The only
nobody
man
else in the
Needle.
building. Yeah.
That feel a little eerie?
Incredibly eerie. We have a camera at the top of the Space Needle. It's for 7 or 8 years, it shoots a high definition 360 image.
Yeah.
And you can go back and look at those days, March, April, Easter. If you look at Easter and you look at that high def image and the absence of people on the streets and the absence of the vehicles, totally different than the driving.
Yeah, I don't want to go back there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've been here 16 years. Before you came to Seattle and took on this role, you, I know, had a long career in the amusement park and water park business. What drew you to the business of experiences and guest service and guest experiences growing up? Was there a series of events or moments that got you into this line of work?
I always really enjoyed live entertainment, music, and so
As a fan or performer or both?
as somebody who could curate experiences.
Yeah.
And, the newer bands were always really interesting to me. And worked for Lamar Hunt back in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's taken me 16 years to migrate away from being a Chiefs fan to a Seahawks fan. But I finally made the shift, although I did.
At the wrong time.
Yeah, I did root for them last year, and worked for a small amusement park. And that Lamar owned, and put on some concerts. This is back in the early 90s, of course, where alternative music was really doing its thing, and certainly it was happening out here in Seattle big time. And really just enjoyed creating these festivals, working with radio stations, multiple bands, and so from there just every year did more and more. And then looked for bigger properties, bigger theme parks and bigger music festivals and things like that. So that brought me here. And in a weird way, I worked for Six Flags theme parks as park president, many different properties around the country. Yeah. And and at some of those parks, you would have 4,500 employees.
Wow.
And it's really hard to push your passion or your vision or your hope, in the quality of experience that you create for people. It's hard to do with 4,500 people when 4,000 of those are seasonal. And
You feel like you're starting over with everybody every year.
every year, average time spent on payroll was about 3 weeks, which, when in an environment where you're delivering this illusion of fear, through these monster roller coasters and different experiences. And then that your career is kind of in the hands of a 17-year-old sometimes.
And you want to take people right up to the line of fear,
and
not cross it.
Yeah, so for me, it was
Delicate balance.
the beautiful thing about the Space Needle at the time was that it had 300 or 400 team members. And for me, it felt like that size of a team base was something that we really could have great impact on the culture. And so that's really the reason, the thing that led me to making the move out here. Aside from the fact that, Seattle was always on my short list of a place that I wanted to live.
And all those people aren't spread out around acres and acres of a theme park. You got a little more vertical environment. Not that they all work out of the Space Needle, right? But we got an office down the street here, but a little more accessible to your team members. I imagine there's some advantage to that versus the amusement park world.
Yeah, theme park world, acres and acres of property.
Yeah.
And we joke here that we are the lack of Space Needle, okay? Because there is not a lot of space here. And so, you talk about how close things are. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at, 500 team members, 550 team members, and we're within about 2 acres, So, very close, very close.
I was reading an interview you did, I don't know, eight or so years ago with Terry Sitterman, who I know, who worked here, I think, prior to your arrival, right, at leading PR, and somebody I've known and worked with for a number of years. And you said to her when you first got here, you made your senior team write down the mission and vision, and most folks, with the absence of HR, struggled with it. Maybe they got closest, but didn't get quite there. And so it was an exercise that you then engaged in to sort of shorten, tighten, rewrite everything. Can your team recite the mission and vision today?
I guarantee you they can. But we made it easy. And that was probably one of the most important things. And you tell that story exactly right. It did happen. And it just pointed out, I mean, the punchline with that conversation and that exercise was, well, if you don't know our vision or mission statement, how could we ever expect our frontline team members to? And that was kind of the kickoff to probably an 18-month process for us to dial in on really what it is. And, for many, many corporations, many businesses, those are just words on a wall. And you might walk by them every once in a while, but certainly at the frontline level, unless you're really paying attention to it and coaching people through this, they're going to forget. And so if your senior team doesn't know what it is, certainly you can't expect frontline to. And we dialed in on something that we moved from values to beliefs. And a belief is something that you can say, I believe this, versus you value integrity. Well, if you value integrity, what do you do to actually value that? I mean, what do you do? And so, but when you say, I believe that life is too short, okay, and we bridge a lot off of life is too short, and that you should do the absolute best you can today with the guests that are in front of you today. And, life is too short. Laugh in every meeting. We probably laugh too much in meetings right now. But you can really start to better live those values or beliefs if you move them from, quality, integrity, safety, service, and it's KISS. Well, okay, but you don't really operationalize that. It's harder to operationalize. So we dialed in on basically our guest service, value, which is just transform moments. And our guests, as they arrive here, you're going to have, 20 to 30 different unique moments where you're going to interact with either the Space Needle, Chihuly Garden and Glass, or our team members. Sometimes that begins with, they just go to our website, and you just want that moment to be the best moment it can be for them. And so if you start going through each of the moments of an experience that a guest is going to have, and the people that own that moment are empowered to do whatever it takes to make that moment the best. So it's more about a mindset than a policy, right? So, somebody's dining and spills a drink. Well, it's not, you need to buy another one. It's like, we're going to do everything we can, to transform that moment into something that you walk away and say, wow, that was really great. It was great the way they dealt with that. And the team member in that moment, they've got all the authority and power that they need to do whatever it takes to have people walking away saying that was a great experience.
How did the pandemic change how you and your team are transforming moments today on the other side of it?
I think today there is a quiet expectation of safety, and it certainly was that way right after we reopened. And
what was your reopening date again?
I think probably late July for the Space Needle, and early August of 2020. We were closed for about 4 months.
Yeah.
Right. So, and COVID was kind of a weird thing too, because I remember in the days and weeks leading up to us actually closing, and then the first couple of weeks of the close, thinking I have the dumbest job on the planet right now. We give elevator rides, okay, and you're supposed to stay 6 feet away from people, right? We give elevator rides, which our elevators are basically 6 feet, so I can put 2 people in an elevator. Well, this won't work.
Those economics don't work.
Yeah, right. So it became very clear to us, and there was a lot of different approaches. People thought it was a surface issue. For us, real quick, we thought this is probably more of an airborne issue. So we invested back then in high quality, air purification and filtration. And to the point that we worked with the University of Washington, University of Colorado Boulder, to test new ultraviolet light, cleaning systems, right? So you'll see that in our elevators today. So we have some of the cleanest air that you could expect in an indoor environment, and I do believe people value that more today than they did 3 or 4 years ago, because we're not totally through this. You still have a couple of different variants out there this summer that people. I've got team members that are out today with COVID, generally caused through travel. But we try to operate as clean of spaces as we can here. Our offices have exactly the same setup with technology that is cleaning the air, filtering the air. And hopefully it translates into a safer place for our team members as well.
And you went through a lot of change pre-pandemic with a $100 million investment to really transform the needle and the experience and bring more technology here. How has that sort of turned out and transformed the guest experience and what people can expect today? Did it meet all your objectives? I know it was a heavy lift in those number of years that those dollars were being spent. The construction was underway, and did it deliver for you? Yeah,
I think we're probably doing the very first podcast on a rotating glass floor. Okay, and so that was a big investment.
Try not to look down. That always makes me. Oof.
It's kind of a wonderful thing. We're rotating and we'll still rotate. We can rotate at any speed that you might want.
We're coming around to the Bellevue skyline. Can we reverse and go the other way?
We could
just see downtown.
But you're able to see the Seattle Center campus in ways that you weren't before. Museum of Pop Culture off to the side. the Gates Foundation. Really,
Where did this idea around not to interrupt you, but the revolving floor originate?
well, the unique thing is working with Olson Kundig, just great architects and great thinkers. They're great. They listened to our issues. They understood our space, and there were
what they don't build anything that doesn't have something that moves. Is the answer, right?
So there were multiple drunken architect studies of concepts that, wow, no, we're not going to do that. Very Jetsons-like, glass elevators and tubes and things like that, planks that you walked out. But this really was something, I believe, if the architects had more time and the technology was there, back in 60, 61, they probably would have thought about something like this. And so what it did, the building up here got out of the way of the view, because there are just a couple places on the planet where you get this diversity of views. Mm-hmm. First of all, you can have an outdoor experience. You can have an indoor experience. Mm-hmm. So if it's rainy, you don't have to go out into the wind and the rain on the observation deck. But you see seaplanes flying by, you landing, just out to the side of us here. You get a great city view. Okay, and that city view is interesting both day and night. For the 100 days a year, whatever it is that Mount Rainier, comes out, it's just what an amazing backdrop, as you're looking at the city, and then you see Mount Rainier behind that. And then you've got Puget Sound. You've got mountain ranges, Mount Baker. On a very clear day, when the air is cool in the morning, on a clear day, you can see Mount St. Helens. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's so much to see in every single direction. And I think it surprises people when they're here. So I really think the Space Needle was just where they built it and why they built it, just an amazing execution. And that's why today you'll see observation towers all around the world that are in their 10th owner. And they continue to try to reinvest. And they aren't always successful with that. And you look at the Space Needle, who's basically had a couple of ownership groups. You had the initial ownership group, and then the Wright family, who was an original owner and then bought out everybody else over the years. And they just continue to reinvest into the Space Needle and into Seattle and Seattle Center. And it just keeps us being relevant and allows for this great foundation of view.
It's hard to think of another place where you can look over such a great urban environment and see 3 national parks.
Yeah.
I can't think of another downtown that has that feature.
Every sunrise, every sunset is spectacular. There are days that you see fog rolling in, the marine layer coming off of Puget Sound, and it just overtakes the city. So it's a great way to start your morning. Just coming up here and experiencing this view.
So what was the conversation like with the Olson Kundig team and the Wright family and you when they said, we want the floor to be glass and we want it to rotate?
Well, it started probably in 2009, the conversations. And
shortly after you got here.
Yeah, we knew that glass floor experiences were something that we were interested in. And because it's thrilling, it's view-oriented, and those are two things that we've always wanted to be. If you're afraid of heights, okay,
you're probably not coming here anyway.
You're not coming anyway, right? Yeah. So that was kind of the initial fear. Well, would people want to do this? And as a landmarked building, we went through landmarks here in the city of Seattle, and what a great process, great feedback. The feedback was so spot on the first time we went through that process. We realized we were wrong in what we were presenting. And so the original concept was not a rotating glass floor on this level. It was actually little glass boxes up on the observation deck level. And they just didn't look right. And so when you talk to neighborhood groups, and anybody who can look at the Space Needle really believes they own it, and we love that. So there were a lot of neighborhood owners telling us we don't want to do this. Okay, we don't like the look of that, and so we pulled back our application on that original concept, and then met Olsen Kundig, who came up with 3 or 4 concepts. And even though we cast a wide net with different ideas, we always knew that this one with a rotating glass floor was going to be it if it was possible. And it was possible. And when we went back into and went through the landmarks process, I think they appreciated that we listened and came back with something that really is something that's going to make sure that the Space Needle and the experience inside the Space Needle is relevant for decades.
And this space is so much more flexible than what was here before. I know that in the fall, winter, and spring, people can get a bite to eat up here. They can get a cocktail. In the summer, the demand to be here is so great that you open it up for everybody. But people may lament the restaurant, but there's a lot of other things you can do up here now, including events, and still get a drink and a bite to eat.
There are still great experiences up here at the Loop level, which is where Sky City used to be.
Yeah.
We have many of the same team members still working here. It's probably a little bit more beverage-led than food-led today, but it is a great place to celebrate, a special occasion. And during the winter, when it's dark at 4:30, it's a great place to have an early evening drink and watch the sunset, whatever it is. But we do, this level turns more back into the Loop Lounge during the winter than during the summer.
And I know you've got a pretty significant elevator project ahead of you here. And that technology's been around, 100 years? And it's amazing that the challenges in maintaining and operating elevators, and I know this just from our own condo building where there's an elevator that seems to be down every week. There's one that's down right now. How do you keep your elevators operating, and what does this project entail? We talked a little bit about this last time I saw you, and it's no small feat to upgrade these elevators.
So they are the original elevator machines that lift the elevator cabs. The cabs have been modified a couple of times over the years. We actually were ready to begin this project in late 2019, early 2020, and then certainly a lot of things changed after 2020. Got back into it 2021, 2022. It's a 5-year project, even from that point. So we're doing one elevator at a time. If you look around, there are elevators in every building. I mean, Seattle is if you sell elevators in the Seattle area, you're doing quite well, okay? And many elevators you might put into a building might be $300,000, right? It just doesn't work like that for the Space Needle. And so we did a worldwide search, all the top elevator manufacturers, and really the only company that could deliver what we needed was the existing company, Otis Elevators. And so it's just absolutely shocking when you look at the price tag of it, okay? But for 3 elevators over a 5-year project, it's going to be over $100 million.
Wow.
But also it's something that really kind of makes sure that the guests that want to get up here can get up here without waiting in lines to leave, which is something that, if you visited Sky City before, many times you had to wait 10 or 15 minutes to actually leave the restaurant, which, when was the last time you waited in line to leave a restaurant, right? So people don't like that. The best moments of your life are not spent waiting in a line. And so this is something that is really going to help that, because 2 of the elevators are double cab, one cab on top of the other. And if you go back and look at some of the original drawings of the Space Needle, they envision double cabs, okay? And the 2 main levels of the Space Needle are basically the same distance apart as the ground level, and then the level that we launch people off of, So what that means is that if you have 2 levels up here, they match perfectly the 2 levels below, so you can load on 2 levels and unload on 2 levels at the same time versus just the one single cab that exists now. The other thing is that the service elevator will be sped up. That will stay a single level, single cab. But Yeah, if we don't have elevators running effectively, we're just a statue. So when one elevator goes down, two elevators goes, and so we have to invest in these elevators being more reliable over the next several decades, and that's exactly what we're doing now.
Is your reliability pretty good? As is? Are these down as often as my condo elevator is down?
Well, I think the response time when when they go down,
that's why they can't make
a little bit
condo
quicker.
Okay.
Our service contract is exponentially more than other buildings.
You're getting priority service.
Yeah.
As you should. Do you have a favorite moment or memory here at the Needle?
The 50th anniversary. I was lucky enough to be here in 2012. Mm-hmm. In that year, we gave away a trip to space. Okay, that was kind of fun, and just remembering the competitions of what people went through. But 2012 was great for another reason too, and that was the year we opened Chihuly Garden and Glass at the base of the Space Needle. And I don't know before we opened that the community understood just how much they would enjoy it and how much the public would enjoy it. Today, so opening that in 2012 was certainly, because we opened May 21st, and we had just celebrated the 50th year anniversary of the Space Needle about a month before. So that 30, 45 day period of opening Chihuly Garden and Glass was just amazing. And Chihuly Garden and Glass has exceeded all of our expectations. And those expectations are important because they were about job creation, okay? It was about supporting other artists with the fundraising and things we did. It's about impact to the Seattle Center campus. And we pay rent to the city. And the rent that we paid has exceeded what they expected. And then, the city of Seattle gets a 5% admission tax off of, so they're probably one of our biggest partners in that.
And that was a big, bold idea when it was first proposed, and there were a lot of critics. It wasn't an easy process. So to have that kind of return and those kinds of numbers is pretty impressive. It's got to feel good to have delivered above and beyond what I think anybody thought. Yeah,
and I do remember that we told people we would likely do more than 400,000, guests a year. And, you're not going to do that. Whatever your feasibility says, you're not going to do that. But Dale Chihuly has experience around the world doing really big numbers. Mm-hmm. And he'll do a garden show in different places. And that will be the highest attendance that garden will ever do. And so we knew that people love his work. And for us, 400,000, well, we've done close to 1 million people a year. And it's the highest rated, thing to do in this city, which was tough for me because when you're managing the Space Needle, the Space Needle used to be number one, and now it's Chihuly Garden and Glass.
Competing with yourself.
So, but people love it, and we're just so grateful that the artist said yes to us, because it isn't something that is natural for them to want to do, and so he trusted us with it, and people love the experience, and that's a really cool thing. So both properties here, both the Space Needle and Chihuly Garden and Glass, if you're having a bad day, all you have to do is come over and watch people in these experiences, and they're going through this thing as a community. They're viewing this amazing art as a community, as a group, and you just see the awe of different age groups, all kinds of people as they go through Chihuly Garden and Glass. And then over here on the rotating glass floor, I've been known to come over here, and as people are afraid to go out on the floor, they're standing on the edge, I might bump them,
A little nudge.
And, and nobody's ever been offended by that. But it's such a shared experience of like, oh God, do I really want to go out there on this thing? And but just that people going through that together, it's just an amazing thing to see, and pretty reinforcing that people are enjoying this, right?
And it's a great way to reconnect with your sort of love of Seattle, right? And to see other people enjoy it and experience it, to get up here and kind of really connect again with what makes this place so special and so unique.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. During the winter, we do get a little bit more local and regional visitation. During the summer, it's going to be a lot of people that are visiting from different markets. A lot of people here on cruise ships. The cruise industry is such an important thing, I think, for a lot of businesses in downtown Seattle, in the hospitality world, of course. And we want to do everything we can to make sure that the cruise industry, continues to look at Seattle as one of these great opportunities. I think that Seattle is a place that if you're going to go on a cruise, you're going to grab a couple days before to really enjoy Seattle, or a couple days after that cruise. I know they go to some fun ports of call, up in Alaska, but I think while we're not literally a port of call, we're a place where they get on a cruise ship. I think this is the best experience of everything they're going to have, just based on the variety of things that are available to people.
Where are your attendance numbers for both the Needle and Chihuly today versus pre-pandemic?
Yeah, we're back at levels that we were before. We do more than 2.5 million visits between the two properties, and we just continue to grow. For many years, the Space Needle was about 1 million visits, and from 62 to maybe the early 2000s, about 1 million visits. There was one spike, and I can't remember if it was 77 or 76, 1977 or 76. You look at the attendance, and there's just this one blip where it goes up from 1 million to 1.4, 1.5, whatever it is, and you're just like, what happened that year? And that was the year Pacific Science Center had the Tut exhibit.
Oh, interesting.
And it was such I remember that period of time with Steve Martin and his King Tut song that came out, and it just took over this country. And Seattle was fortunate enough to host that at the Pacific Science Center. And so other than that, it had been about 1 million. And then we really made a concerted effort to invest in the guest experience and technology and ways that they could see better into Seattle and beyond, and a lot of photo experiences too. So that's one thing that people do a lot of here, whether it's Chihuly Garden and Glass or the Space Needle. They're taking pictures of it, they're taking pictures in it, and they're broadcasting this stuff. And those are two qualities that both of these experiences offer.
And social media and the evolution of it has got to be a good thing for experiences like this.
Yeah, just Monday night, we were. I don't watch The Bachelorette normally, okay, but on Monday nights, my home is turned into a watch party.
Yeah,
with different members of my family and some of their friends. Yeah, we had a date at Chihuly Garden and Glass in the Glass House, right. And just spectacular. And again, it's you watch it and you're just so happy to see how Seattle looks.
Yeah.
So we're good. Okay. So on Monday night, Bachelorette, happened. And you watch it, and it's just so good to see how Seattle looks. Okay, and whether it's the view of the Space Needle from Cary Park or the view at Cary Park looking into the community. They started in Pioneer Square, they went all over. So it was really great to see Seattle, all the best angles of Seattle.
Yeah. So I know you all get asked a lot to raise a flag for a certain occasion, to have the top of the Needle painted. In that story I referenced earlier, that interview that Terry did with you, and she recounted when she was here doing PR and the Sonics were playing the Bulls in the finals, painted a couple jerseys up top and had the number for Sean Kemp wrong, and had to sort of deal with that. How do you and your team work through the decisions around all the different folks that want to raise a flag, paint something, use this incredible monument to highlight a moment?
Yeah, we do get a lot of requests, and every time you do a flag raising, you're going to get calls the next week, for 10 other groups that want to do the same
I was
thing.
thinking a Downtown Seattle Association logo would look
I knew
really good up on top.
I knew where this was going.
Yeah.
You were going to put me on the spot.
It's a circular logo, so it sort of fits well with the top of the needle.
So we do try to keep it special. And when there's a flag up, you want people to, oh, wow, there's a flag up the top of the Space Needle, and everybody in the community is going to see that. And you want them to notice, and you want it to be special for the reason that we're doing it. So they're usually community focused. There have been a couple that have been corporate but charity focused from time to time. If you can talk us into supporting a charity, we might do something for you on the corporate side. But generally, it's something that is community oriented. Sometimes it's sports teams, but even the sports teams, the threshold is we know the community is rallying around some big event sports wise, and sometimes it could be we're courting somebody like the World Cup, to do something, and so we want to be supportive in those pursuits as well. So it really is. It's a community that's what we're trying to reflect.
And you're sort of thinking of it perhaps as like punctuating sort of an energy that's already out there in the community. Is that kind of how you approach it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So creating anything new, or
it's the bar for doing this is very high.
Yeah.
And we just want to keep it special. That's the thing. So I know we disappoint a lot of different groups that want to have it done, but we do the best we can.
We've got a couple standard questions, Ron. One is, what was your first job? Or you got a paycheck for? Not being
this
paid under
is
the table, but just a true paycheck.
So I grew up in Kansas, a small town in Kansas, and my first job was probably just mowing lawns. I think a lot of people in Kansas grow up entrepreneurial, for that reason, because you can do things like that. But the first real paycheck was working at a Sonic drive-in. Okay. But the range of things that I've done in getting to this point is pretty crazy. I've been a butcher, and I don't mean just kind of a butcher. No, really. I
not just handing me a New York.
Yeah, no, I know how
your way around a cow.
how to do this, right?
Wow. Do you have a favorite cut?
Oh goodness. Yeah. I mean, it's probably going to be a tenderloin. I mean, how could you go wrong with that?
Yeah.
But a range of things over time, and I think the range of different work experiences I understand what our frontline team members go through. I've worked security, I've delivered appliances, just all kinds of things over in my work history. And that's just given me broad perspective and a lot of empathy for anybody who's going to show up and work at the frontline level. And so it also exposed me to every type of person that you would ever want to understand. And so that helps me with a guest orientation, an other orientation, and able to understand what they're looking for and what disappoints them, so that I can avoid that.
And our final question we conclude with is your perfect Saturday in Seattle. What are you doing if you can design it from morning till night?
Okay, perfect Saturday in Seattle. We'll say it's a summer Saturday. Okay, and in the attraction hospitality industry, the Space Needle's open 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. So in many ways, during the summer, every day is a Saturday. Okay. And so you're working over the weekend, you get time off during the winter when the days are short and cloudy, which isn't really what you want, but this is what we do. So a perfect Saturday is going to start likely up here. I'm weird in that I on a Saturday during the summer, I'm usually doing a donut run for our break rooms. So I start there, and then load up the break rooms for the team members with donuts. If it's really hot, it's going to be fruit and other stuff. But it starts making sure that last night, that as we closed at midnight and it's 7 a.m. at this point, that we're ready to go. And so it starts up here, which is great, because you guys kind of see right now up here at the top of the Space Needle what a day can look like.
Not a bad way to start your day.
No, and the cloudy days many times are some of the best sunrises you're ever going to see, and the best sunsets. Have great clouds as well. So it's going to start up here. I try not to work a full day during the summer because I want to spend some time with my family, of course. Almost every day I work, there's going to be an urban hike, okay, and usually a couple of miles. But a great hike, from Cary Park to the market or to the waterfront is wonderful. Walk through the sculpture park is a great experience too. I like to do walking meetings where you can just get out and, taking public transportation or driving, you miss the little nooks and crannies of a neighborhood. And that's a beautiful thing about Seattle, is that there's so much happening on every block. And, there's a lot of fresh investment and entrepreneurship taking place. And that sometimes looks like a new bar, a new restaurant, whatever it may be. And so I'm always seeking out those types of new experiences and trying to find little spaces where somebody's really proud of something they do and delivers a great experience. So I think a little bit of work, a great urban hike. I like to hike to a brewery. so if I can do a couple mile hike and have a nice locally made beer, that's always a great thing. And probably ending up at a place like maybe Saigon Drip, and having a nice banh mi, which the diversity of restaurants and the diversity of ownership of restaurants is pretty incredible in this city. So usually ending up at some nice restaurant, and where it's locally owned. It's a wonderful thing about Seattle. We might be big on exporting concepts as franchises around the world. We don't import a lot. I mean, a lot of what Seattle is just local and reflects the local and regional tastes of a really diverse group of people. And in that way, on every block, every corner, there's going to be something new and something that somebody's proud of. And so I've got, it's very easy for me to walk into a new place, sit down and know that I'm going to have a good experience.
Yeah, indeed. It's one of our great qualities. We're generators, not repeaters.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about New Year's at the Needle, but you've evolved that quite a bit in the last several years. Are you holding your breath every year at 11:59 and fingers crossed, hoping that thing goes off? That seems like a very stressful responsibility.
Everybody's watching, and that's a beautiful thing. Every year.
Are you up here watching?
No. It's best to. I mean, it's really not a great experience watching it from here. Yeah. So many times I'll be in an office, or I'll watch it. I'll watch it out my window, and I'll watch it on TV at the same time to see if they've got the timing right. They're always, whether it's windy, rainy, foggy, there are just different things each year. That there's always a theme of the year, though. And what we're trying to do, I think Seattle doesn't really care what happened in New York 3 hours earlier in Times Square. And so we look at the West Coast and think, why isn't there a West Coast live broadcast everywhere? So we added a couple of markets last year on the West Coast where you had more cities watching the Space Needle New Year's broadcast. And we think we're going to continue to do that. And if we could ever get to the point where we've got more venues on the West Coast participating in our time zone, we think that that's something that we'd like to have happen. We'd love to have more people watching Seattle at midnight because it's such an interesting time. It's a very nostalgic time, as you are winding down the year. And it's a very optimistic time as you start the next year. And so having community focused on the Space Needle New Year's Eve it's a heck of an honor and an obligation. And we think we can do a better job in highlighting Seattle that night to a bigger audience over the next few years.
Well, good on you for taking on the East Coast media bias. Yeah,
it's real.
Go West Coast, go. Well, thanks, Ron, for making time for this and having us up today, and for all you're doing to steward this incredible monument and to evolve the experience for those who live here and that are coming from around the world. And it's a great way to get back in touch with your passion and love of this city as a local to get up here.
Well, very lucky to do this. And really, I try to channel the Space Needle. I try to channel why they built the Space Needle. We make decisions on what they intended, where people could go and see the future. And we continue to do that. And we recognize that it's a huge responsibility and we don't take it lightly. And the owners of the Space Needle, they continue to reinvest in great experiences. And so very fortunate to be where I am and to work with the people that I do. But thank you for coming up here today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ron. It was terrific to get up to the Space Needle. What a great way to start the day. Gives you instant appreciation, if you didn't have it already, for this beautiful place surrounding Seattle. Whether it's a cloudy day or crystal clear. It was a little cloudy up there the morning we recorded, but beautiful nonetheless. So do yourself a favor if you haven't been in the Needle or Chihuly Garden and Glass, get over there. It's a great reminder of the specialness of the Pacific Northwest. I want to close out with a recommendation of something you got to check out here in downtown Seattle. I want to highlight the opening of Fogo de Chao in downtown at 4th and University. It's their third Washington location, first in Seattle, the Brazilian steakhouse that started in Brazil by a couple of brothers in 1979 and then expanded to the U.S. in 1997. Has got a beautiful new space across from the Fairmont Hotel, kitty corner to Purple at 4th and University. Congratulations to the folks at Wright Runstad, the developers of the Rainier Square project, for partnering with Fogo de Chao to open their Seattle location. They're open 7 days a week and on a number of holidays: Christmas, New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve. So go check them out. Welcome to downtown Fogo de Chao. Can't wait to get in and get me some Brazilian steak. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.